What's up, guys? Hold on, let me see. Let me get these pennies out of my hand. Let me see if I can raise this camera just a little bit more. I want to talk about something that I just heard that I really liked, which was the statement of, I didn't change, the left left me behind. Because I've been saying this for a long time. The line, you didn't change, the line moved. You know, because I've got a lot of friends who are classically liberal who now would be considered conservatives. And that's funny to all of us. Because we all are sort of moderately in the middle in that sense. Let's see. What can I grab here? How much do I need? So I was really able to relate to this because, like I said, all of my friends are classically liberal, and we were like, what happened? What happened? And I also heard this other funny quote, meme, comment that was something like, you know, if you're not liberal when you're a, what is it? If you're not a liberal in your 20s, if you're not a liberal in your 20s, you don't have a heart. If you're not a conservative when you're older, you don't have a brain. I thought that was funny. Because that's kind of the way of the world right now, to be honest. Like, as we get older, realize that our parents weren't so wrong about things. And that we don't have to rabble against so many things. And that there are certain things that we once valued that we no longer value, and there are certain things that we value now that we didn't before. And so, you know, there's a reason why this still isn't enough, and it's not big enough. Hold on. I'm not using my normal setup here today because I decided to just kind of talk about this while I was counting my pennies, putting some pennies in the bank, because my change jar, which I put ones and change in every day, was full. So, you know, over the last 2 years especially, I've started relating to the conservatives. I don't agree with them with everything, and I don't agree with the left with everything. So I sort of sit firmly in the middle. I think this video is going to be titled why I'm not on either side. And that's because, and I've been this way for a long time, you know, there are things on both sides that I don't agree with. Not going to get into what those are, but there are things on both sides that I don't agree with, and there are things on both sides that I do agree with. And there are a lot of us like that right now, where, you know, I was asking this guy today, because he did this video on like 5 signs you're going through a spiritual awakening. And I was like, I asked him a question. I was like, how often do you find that these same exact things are also a sign that you're being what we call red-pilled? Because you can have your spiritual awakening, and often that coincides with like an awakening and having your eyes opened to just sort of the truth of the world. And that makes people like me no longer be able to side with the leftists and even some of the liberals, and why we side on certain things with the conservatives. Because at the end of the day, again, we haven't changed. All our values are the same. But our eyes have been open to the truth. So we come to realize that the most loving thing you can do sometimes is not accepting everything. And so this is what I wanted to get into today, was the fact that the reason why I can't be on the left is because there's a point where it stopped being about letting anybody who wants to do their own thing do their own thing. And that in and of itself can be a dangerous thing. I made this comment today on generalization. You know, for any generalization you make, there's probably 4 or 5 other generalizations you can make within the same category. So the one today, it was this guy standing up and being like, you know what? You shouldn't criticize girls and women for exposing themselves on the internet or doing, he used the word spicy, doing spicy content or saying spicy things or whatever. He used the word spicy. You shouldn't criticize them because they have confidence and you don't. And I was like, look, buddy, you're not wrong. There are some people who do the things that you're talking about because they have confidence. There are also a lot of people who criticize them because they don't have confidence. But to everything there is a polarity, because that is how the universe works. So for every person that does it with confidence, there are equal, if not possibly more in this case, people who are exposing themselves on the internet for attention because they need the validation, because they're trying to get their self-worth and self-love from outside of themselves rather than within. And people who have a hard time watching that because it's painful. It's painful to watch someone be in so much pain that they feel like they have to get their needs met in unhealthy ways. So for every generalization, there's going to be a polarity on the opposite side. Remember this. Whenever you try to make a generalization about anything, there is always going to be an equal and opposite side to that. So I can get down, for the most part, with people wanting to do adults wanting to do whatever they want to do in the comfort of their own home. There are certain things that I think we can all agree on, although it doesn't seem like these days maybe that's the case anymore. But at one point we could all agree on the fact that pedophilia was bad. Now there are people on the left, because we've opened the door with all the trans acceptance, we have opened the door to calling them what is it they call them? Child attracted persons. Minor attracted persons. Come on now. Minor attracted persons. I don't know if you've ever met or were yourself a child who was raped by an adult, or even just had sex with someone much older than yourself, or had any sort of interaction as a child with someone much older than yourself. You would know that adults, even if you're just an adult, you know that adults mentally are on a different wavelength, in a different state of mind than children. Children are more innocent, whether they realize it or not. And adults are less innocent, and more knowledgeable. So this idea that we are supposed to, and this is where it really gets me, the fact that we are supposed to be accepting of people who find children attractive just because they've never done anything yet. I can't get down with that. I don't care if they've never done anything to anyone. And there's this whole idea, well, you know, because of the stigma, they can't get help. Yes, they can. Yes, they can. I don't want to hear that because they feel ashamed of themselves that they can't get help. You wouldn't feel ashamed of yourself if you didn't think what you were doing was wrong. People who do things that they know they don't need to be ashamed of don't care what anybody else thinks. When in your heart of hearts you know that what you're doing is right, you don't need anyone else's approval. And not only, and this is where my problem lies, not only are they saying we want to do this, they're saying you have to accept it too. And that is authoritarianism. Point blank. Point blank. That is authoritarianism. And that's why I can't get down with that. I can't get down with that. I haven't changed. Most of the people I know haven't changed. The line has changed. So, oh crap. Did I just, I'm gonna have to figure out which one of these I just didn't put an extra penny in, possibly. Because I took out a wheat penny. Is it this one? It might be this one. I think it's this one. You know, I'm all for the most part, doing what you want to do in the privacy of your own home. I don't necessarily think that what you're doing is right, but what I think doesn't matter. What I think doesn't matter. And I appreciate that my mom raised me that way. To each their own. To each their own. Doesn't have to be for me, for it to be for you. It doesn't have to be for you, for it to be for me. That said, it doesn't have to be for me just because it's for you. And that's where I draw the line. And why? That and the fact that, like I said, sometimes the most loving thing you can do is not be tolerant of something. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is not be accepting of something. If my parents, you can love someone and not accept something or be tolerant of something they're doing. And you can be supportive of them while not being accepting or tolerant of what they're doing. If my parents had been just like, oh yeah, sure, be a heroin addict. Here's a bunch of money. Have fun. I could have ended up dead in a ditch somewhere. And it's a great example of how sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is not be accepting. And I'm grateful. I am so grateful of all of the lessons I've learned from having been a heroin addict. That's why I finally did that video where I talked about it the other day. Because it has taught me some life lessons that I really understand at my core because of it. And it has made me a better teacher, a better counselor, coach, whatever you want to call it, mentor, Well, that wasn't that one. Am I going to have to recount all these pennies to figure out which one's missing one? Well, I guess I can use this one as my judging thing now, because I know for sure that this one has the right amount. But yeah, so that's why I can't stand with either side, because there are certain things that conservatives believe in that I don't believe in. You know, I agree with a lot of what they believe in, because classical liberals did. Because classical liberals were sort of moderates in the sense that they were open to and accepting of both sides, the left and the right. But we've just gotten to this point where the left now wants us to not only tolerate what they're doing, but believe in what they're doing. And no one else should ever dictate your beliefs. That's why I kept that in my intuitive lifestyle course, round 3. Because building your own belief system and understanding what your own belief system is, because it's going to start out with a bunch of things that you took on from other people, and you're going to break that down and figure out what beliefs are actually yours and which aren't. And then build back your beliefs from there. Because it's okay to have beliefs that started out someone else's beliefs. All beliefs start out someone else's beliefs. That's how we learn and grow, is by taking on the world and deciding what of the world is ours. So, you know, it's not wrong to keep beliefs that you believe in that were others. What's wrong is holding beliefs within you that you've not made your own. Because if you're going to have a belief system, I check to make sure there's no wheat pennies in these, because I have a whole jar of wheat pennies. I'm hoping I can exchange it for even more money someday. All the different ways I save, a penny at a time. What was I just saying? Yeah, your belief system. Your belief system needs to be your own, which means that you need to figure out all the different things you believe in, think about them, find out what the opposite of that is, and then decide from there whether or not you still hold that belief. You know, so again, I'm not going to necessarily talk about on either side, like specific things that I can't get down with, but the most recent thing that I can't get down with on the left with these new woke liberals that they're trying to push is not just tolerance, but acceptance. That everybody has to believe what they believe, everybody has to do what they do the way they do. Nope, sorry. If you are not harming somebody else, and I mean physically harming somebody else, because emotional harm is up to the person who's feeling it. Like, seriously. You know, and as kids, we don't understand this. So, you know, you want to be a little more careful with kids. But that said, I can't get down with this idea that emotional harm is up to the person feeling it in the sense that we should consider it violence. Because violence doesn't mean suffering pain. Violence means physical harm. And I'm sticking with that. Because we need to draw the line somewhere. And I am open to a lot of things. A lot of things. You know, I do not hold beliefs that align with either side. And I do hold beliefs that align with either side. Both sides. I'm trying to have this conversation without getting into specifics. It's hard. While counting pennies, which at least I figured out a system for that, so I don't have to like count them. I can just use my eyeballs. So I can use my brain for talking at you. But yeah, I guess that's really all I wanted to say. Was that, you know, there is a point where it is no longer loving to be tolerant and accepting. There is a point where it is no longer loving to be inclusive, all inclusive. So, you know, just be aware. Be aware of the fact that someone's intention when it comes to certain things does matter. And there are times when someone's intention doesn't matter. Life is, the universe is, God, source, spirit, cosmic consciousness is in the polarities and finding a balance between the two. So that's why it's rough right now. It's rough right now in a lot of different ways. But there's a reason why at this point I spend my time with people who, oh wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I spend my time with people who are more on the conservative side these days. Again, we haven't changed. The line's moved. The people who would be considered conservatives, and even really hardcore conservatives, I end up leaning towards them more often these days, which is weird for me. Which is weird for me because I want to be loving of all. But you can't, let me put it this way. What I see as loving, I get from my life experience. And so I've been able to discern. I use health as a measurement. Let's put it that way. I use health as a measurement. And health is, whether people want to believe it or not, quantifiable. You can measure what is healthy and what isn't based on the physical body and based on one's level of happiness. And someone can tell you that they're happy. But the thing is you can tell when they're not. You can tell when they're not. There are some very clear signs that they're not actually happy. So from that, there are certain things I can't get down with on either side. Because I can see that it's unhealthy. And that we all need to be able to make compromises without compromising what we know to be right and wrong, because there are some things that are right and wrong. And I'm gonna take a stand right here and say pedophilia is wrong. Some people are gonna be like, duh, and some people are gonna be like, oh, how dare you? How dare you? You should be accepting to everybody. Not pedophiles. Nope, sorry. Can't do it. Can't do it. And this is what I mean. And I am an absolutist with all things that I do. So if I believe something, it applies to everything. And I have yet to find something that that's not the case for. And I know I've talked about some of these things before, but I just really wanted to talk about this, because the left has left a lot of us behind. I've been called a bigot on Facebook for telling someone that making an assumption about someone's intentions is wrong, and that if you haven't told someone what your boundary is, how can they uphold it? I asked that question. I was called a bigot for asking the question, how can you expect someone to uphold your boundary if you don't know, if they haven't been told what it is? And some people are like, well, you should just respect people's boundaries. And it's like, I'm not a freaking mind reader. Come on now. We're not mind readers. And different things are acceptable in different places. And not everybody is going to be aware of what's acceptable where. They have to be told. And you cannot expect someone to know if you haven't told them. So to assume, and this was about getting a hug, just to be clear. Dude didn't like feel her up or anything. The guy gave her a hug. And you know what? I know those kinds of circles. And most everybody is like really friendly, huggy, handsy. And that's normally okay. Like, for everybody. Because you go to places like that and you're all family. Whether you've met each other for the first time or you've known each other for a long time. You show up to that event, you are family. I've belonged to a lot of circles like that. So this girl being upset because someone gave her a hug when she didn't tell him that she didn't want a hug. I was called a bigot for just raising the question of how can someone know what you're... You know, I didn't even say it as a statement at that time. I said, well, how can they know what your boundaries are if you don't tell them? Just raised it as a question. And I was a bigot. And a sexist. And a TERF. Or whatever. Anyway. I guess I'll leave it at that. For now. But yeah. Don't ever let anybody make you feel bad for upholding your boundaries based on your belief system. Because if you're really actually doing something shameful, you'll know. You'll know. It won't be a question. You'll know. But these people, these freaking people, man. Not only do I want you to let me do everything I want to do, I want you to believe in everything I believe. Nope. Nope. And that's why I stand with the conservatives often. Because it is time to conserve the beliefs this country was founded on, because they are not flawed. Just because they were not always upheld as they should be doesn't mean they are flawed. That is why this country, America, this country is the most amazing country that everybody wants to come to and be a part of. Because the foundation of our system, perfect. Freaking perfect. Because it allows us to have freedom of belief, and therefore freedom of speech based on that belief, based on the idea that adults can handle their own shit and not wig out like children because someone disagrees with them. It hurt my feelings. I swear I'm more sympathetic when I'm actually working with people. Because it's on an individual by individual basis. And that's why I love Jordan Peterson. Because it should be on an individual by individual basis. It really should. There should never be a point where we make these sweeping generalizations and assume that they will work for everybody. Because at a minimum, we will all fit into at least 10 categories in some way. We are not snowflakes. We are ice cubes. I said this yesterday on Instagram. We are not these immaculately unique things. We are actually pretty homogeneously the same in a lot of ways. A lot of us. All of us in some way. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to get along, guys. Your people are out there. If you enjoyed this, you should check out my Sanctuary of the Awakened on Patreon. I have my VIP group, which I call the Sanctuary of the Awakened on Patreon. I really want to get that Slack chat up and going because I really want to build up my Slack chat group as a place for those of us who sorry, hold on. I screwed up somewhere. Do I have an extra penny? Yes, I have an extra penny. I want to build up my Slack chat group as a place where those of us who want a place to talk about these kinds of things can talk about them freely without the woke trolls who just can't handle it. Can't handle, like, that people can disagree with anybody or believe something different. I want to have a place like that, or I do have a place like that is what I should say, for people to talk. It just hasn't been utilized. So all you have to do to get access to that is sign up for my Sanctuary of the Awakened. And honestly, right now, I'm thinking about just like letting anybody in who wants to, just to sort of build it up. Maybe I'll make like a limit. Maybe I'll make a limit of like how many people can join in the beginning without actually like being in the Sanctuary of the Awakened on Patreon. Maybe I won't. We'll see. We'll see. I really want a place for like-minded people to be able to speak openly with each other, to have conversations, because I'm all about being able to have discourse. And that's what I love about Slack, is that you can get in rooms within my room on subject matter and have conversations. That's what I loved about Clubhouse in the beginning. I just couldn't spend the hours that I was spending on Clubhouse talking to people. So I had work to do. It was good. It was good for me. Like, I don't regret anything. I will never regret anything. But, yeah. All right, guys. Thank you for joining me for another video. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Don't forget to check out all the links in the description, which includes my Patreon, where you can sign up for the Sanctuary of the Awakened, as well as other tiers of membership on my Patreon. I've got all sorts of other links. If you are ready to heal, grow, and expand your consciousness, I have spots available for one-on-one sessions. And you can either sign up for my free clarity call while it's still there, or you can just sign up if you know you're really ready. All it does is commit you to, depending on what package you sign up for, a certain amount of sessions, and then we personalize it from there, depending on what you want to work on, or if you know you have something you want to work on or not. And yeah. My email's in there. My email's in there all the time. And may the energies you serve you well. And let's keep making our way through. And remember, don't ever let anyone make you feel like you have to accept or be tolerant of everything they do. Because sometimes the most loving thing you can do is not be. It depends. It depends. And sometimes, honestly, I'll end with this. Sometimes you're not supposed to be tolerant of what they're doing because you're not supposed to be around them. Like, that's a thing. Like, sometimes you're not supposed to be around people because you're not supposed to be around them. So, like, if you can't be tolerant of what they're doing, like, just don't be around them. And sometimes you're not supposed to be tolerant of what other people are doing because what they're doing is wrong. Either way, that's your boundary to uphold. Because at the end of the day, whether it's because they're actually doing something wrong or they're just not doing something that's right for you, recognizing that and walking away, or finding a way to, you know, sort of mediate your relationship to not have those particular things be involved, that's up to you. Whether you need to completely walk away. Some people need to completely walk away. But yeah. All right, guys. Thank you for joining me for another video. May the energies you serve you well. And let's keep making our way through.